Again, ladies and gentlemen, Michael Matt from the editor's desk here at the Remnant newspaper, nursing a cold this week. Well, actually, it's been for a couple of weeks now, ever since we got back from Rome. Pope Francis has had his own little new Green Deal, since the beginning, since 2013, when he started, letting pro-abort, sustainable development people like Jeffrey Sachs just waltz in and out of the Vatican. We did a lot of work on that, but they've all been in the same game all along, and now it's just they're all coming out of the closet.
Jeff Sachs, I'm director of the Earth Institute at Columbia University and special advisor to United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. Thanks to all of you for meeting at this moment of crucial importance for the world. We're celebrating together the gift of Laudato Si, Pope Francis's new passionate, eloquent, wise, compelling encyclical on our common home. It's an encyclical that's reaching all over the world, and you meet just in the days before all of the world's leaders, the 193 heads of state and government of the United Nations, will soon come to New York. They will hear from Pope Francis on September 25th how glorious that is. And then they will adopt the new Sustainable Development Goals.
So Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is just another new Catholic on a long list of pro-abort, pro-gay marriage, pro-contraception, sort of post-Vatican II Church of Accompaniment Catholics who have been the movers and the shakers of the left for a long time. Movers and shakers of the United Nations, the whole One World group, they're all Catholics. I guess it's because Vatican II Catholics really are not required to be Catholic anymore. It almost seems like the powers of darkness just really enjoy promoting these apostates, like they used to do in music, like with Madonna and people like that back in the 80s. They were always showcasing their Catholicism, their apostasy, but they were supposedly born and raised Catholics. And the same thing's been going on in politics all along. There's a real demonic component to this, in other words. And now that the faith of the people, the faith of the Catholic people is nearly completely gone, guess what? Here comes the persecution. Here comes the end of the Catholic Church in the modern world. Here comes shepherds in chains. We ought to get used to seeing that because it's happening all over the place now.
The most senior Catholic cleric ever to be convicted of child sexual abuse received a 6-year prison sentence in Australia this morning. A jury found Cardinal George Pell guilty of molesting 2 choir boys more than 20 years ago.
And that's pretty amazing. That's a powerful man who's been sent off to prison now. And I'm not even going to talk about guilt or innocence. I'm just saying, look what's happening to the church. And these guys, of course, these were the neo-Catholics. I hate to say it. Cardinal Pell was a neo-Catholic. His compromise with the world gained him nothing. Do you remember Cardinal Pell and Richard Dawkins?
So are you talking about a kind of Garden of Eden scenario with an actual Adam and Eve?
Well, what Adam and Eve terms, what do they mean? Life and earth. It's like every man. That's a beautiful, sophisticated, mythological account. It's not science.
You've got to bring Richard Dawkins back in here because we've moved from evolution, obviously, to the biblical versions of it. Your response?
Well, I'm curious to know if Adam and Eve never existed, where did original sin come from?
See, so that was the problem. This has been the problem with neo-Catholicism all along, friends. It was never about personal liturgical preference. It was never about updating the church to fit in with the modern world. Those were all excuses for what this neo-Catholicism was. Really what neo-Catholicism was all about was weakening the church, silencing the church, ultimately imprisoning the church, crucifying the church. That's why we had this war going with neo-Catholics. It wasn't never a matter of opinion. It was this idea, and we could see it happening, that the church was becoming weaker and weaker and weaker until here we are. They're locking up cardinals of the Catholic Church. The church is in complete destruction right now. It's in free fall. Persecution was always inevitable. So long as, via the vehicle of neo-Catholicism, the church continued to bow and scrape to the modern world. Because this was what they always had in mind. Crucify the church. Lock her up. Make it illegal. Make it disappear. And so neo-Catholicism literally was the useful idiots of the revolution. Changing the liturgy of the church, altering the scriptures to make sure no one had any problem with our scriptures, with the word of God, denying little things like creation ex nihilo. Well, yeah, sort of, but not really, because we're sophisticated now. We don't believe in creation. We don't believe there really was an Adam and Eve and all that. They've been doing this all along. As the church abandoned her charter and flew this flag of neo-Catholicism. What exactly did it get us? Nothing. Just 54 years now after the close of Second Vatican Council, 50 years this month, in fact, since the introduction of the new Mass, which Paul VI offered the first time 50 years ago in the vernacular, the Catholic Church has become an institution without an identity. It's corrupt from top to bottom now. When people say, well, it was always like that, I'm so sick of this. It was always like that. Just because you don't know anything about history doesn't actually mean your little narrative about history is accurate, because it was not always this way. And it's funny how easy it is to prove this, that it was not always this way. Even pre-Vatican II Hollywood movie records, can dispel this, can beg to differ that it was always this way in the Catholic Church. So just a few years before Vatican II, for example, just a few years before, you had powerhouse leading Hollywood actors such as Spencer Tracy, Catholic priest who was defending and saving whom? A small army of little boys. The irony is rich. You remember Boys Town?
Boys Town is real. It is a drama greater than the imagination of Hollywood's best storytellers. 4,000 boys have passed through this city of little men. And now the drama, the laughter, the heartache and the triumph of all these boys is crystallized in the story of one young renegade who came from the back streets into conflict with the one man who could save him.
Right, so there you go. Pretty good movie. Nobody associated Catholic priests with pedophiles back in the day. Just the opposite is the truth. It was the Catholic Church that protected the orphans from the pedophiles way back when, before the Second Vatican Council blew up. Remember James Cagney? I always loved that movie, Angels with Dirty Faces. I'll still watch that with my kids sometimes. Now, then again, the priest. The priest is the hero. The priest is in charge of the boys. He's the hero. He's the guy that saves everybody. Patrick O'Brien. Check this one out. You'll remember it.
In the heart of this melting pot of crime stands an oasis, where one man struggles against the forces that turn his loved ones to lives of violence and shame. Into this atmosphere walks the most ruthless character you have ever seen on the screen. Angels with Dirty Faces.
I'm going to use your case as a crowbar to pry open and uncover this cesspool. I'm going to force the law, corrupt or not, to indict and prosecute and bring to light of day this entire filthy mess.
Even Hollywood, in other words, had to bow to the mighty Catholic priesthood back in the day. Had to bow to the Catholic orphanage. There was nothing like it. People say, well, Francis, he's teaching us how to be merciful. Really? The Catholic Church invented the idea of the orphanage, of the boys' schools, the girls' schools, taking care of little kids all over the world. The Catholic Church invented the idea of the hospital. It started the hospitals. It started the towns. It started the schools. It educated the world. And people, well, Francis, he's showing us how to do it. Really? Could you be that ignorant of history? Literally built the great cities of the world. She was the patron to the most celebrated artisans, architects, and musicians in history. She produced the greatest scientific minds, the greatest poets, the greatest musicians of all time. That was the church, the pre-Vatican II church of the past. That was the church that built Western civilization. And now today, what do we have? We've got a den of iniquity, where little kids are not even safe around priests anymore, where princes of the church are covering for child predators, and where popes are prattling on about climate change and straws in the ocean and just about whatever else comes into his head, other than the salvation of souls, other than the building up of the kingship of Christ. What happened? What happened? Modernism happened. Vatican II happened. The new Mass happened. Friends, they did it all on purpose. They'd auto-destructed the church. They wrecked the old church in order to make room for this international brotherhood of man, this church of accompaniment, the one world religion, whatever you want to call it, the farce, the phony farce that we're living through right now. This is why the churches are closing by the thousands now. This is why the schools are all shutting down. This is why our priesthood has become a gay profession. Our bishops are going to jail. And our Pope, my gosh, he thinks his job is like Captain Kangaroo. He's going to save the planet or something. Not from demonic possession, not from evil entities, by the way, but he's going to save the planet from rising temperatures. Could he be any more deluded, diabolically disoriented? A band of fools. We got some commentators saying that they really pulled off a great deception over there. Whoever's saying that was not at that summit on clerical sexual abuse. They didn't deceive anybody. The Vatican didn't fool anyone. They fell flat on their face. But they made a mockery of the Catholic Church in the process. And over again, as we were sitting in the Vatican press hall every day, looking at this pathetic spectacle, I kept on thinking, they can't be this stupid. And we were all just shaking our heads like, who are these fools? Who do they think they're kidding? Nobody was falling for it, especially not the victims groups who were up and down the streets of Vatican City just ticked off. Do you think, does it make you suspicious when they say that now that they've been listening, now they grasp the severity of the crime of child abuse? These men are 50, 60, 70 years old. So it took all the way until a meeting in Rome in 2019 for them to figure out how terrible child sexual abuse is? How can that be serious? And if they are serious, doesn't that almost make them incompetent to even handle this crisis if they didn't know how bad child abuse was until this meeting this month in 2019?
And no, that's the point. I mean, that is what you've said, is just so stunningly amazing. And it's like, and these men are not stupid. Okay, well, I mean, they're not. They've all educated seminary, moral theology. A lot of them have PhDs in, English-speaking universities and whatever. It's not like there's some backwater kind of thing. And they're running giant corporations, all of them. Multi-million-dollar corporations, complex management, all these parishes, all these schools and stuff like that. And you're telling me, this is the whole point, that's what we're supposed to take seriously, that they don't know what a rape of a child is. I mean, that's unbelievable. Nobody was fooled by what they're doing. And then again, we always talk about, what are we going to do about this? What are we going to do? Well, first of all, now that we can really see with 2020 hindsight what's been going on, let's stop defending it. There's nothing defensible here anymore. I don't care if you prefer Mass in English. That's irrelevant. Why did they destroy your church? Let's stop. Let's start asking those questions and stop defending the indefensible. We need to open our eyes and start admitting to the truth of what really happened. That guys that did not care about the Catholic Church at all, that wanted to get rid of the Catholic Church for a long time, dogma, liturgy, and everything else, schools, everything. They're called modernists, liberals, progressives. They took over the church. You see, and now that they've taken it over, they're just going to sit back and watch and let the mighty state crush what's left of Christ's church, of Christ's bride. Well, that's what we see when we see Cardinal Pell in handcuffs. These guys are not going to stop that. They're contributing to it. That's what they meant by we're going to change the church so it can never be changed back. Anyone who's still practicing the faith is going to be kicked out, is going to leave the church, go to jail. They don't care. So we need to help all of our brothers and sisters see that we need to go back to tradition. We must come together as brothers and oppose the occupiers of our church. I say it week in and week out. This is war. We need to come together and oppose them as soldiers of Christ with everything we've got. Back in 1982, for example, in a conference on the infiltration of modernism in the church, Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre said it like this, and I paraphrase, but it's pretty close to this, when he said, yes, we're rebels. Yes, we're dissidents. Yes, we are disobedient to people like Bugnini. I would use the word Bergoglio at this point. Yes, we're disobedient. They have infiltrated themselves, says Archbishop Lefebvre. They have infiltrated themselves in the church in order to destroy it. There is no other explanation. And we're Catholic, and we have to stay Catholic. That trumps everything else. We were born into this faith, into this Catholic faith of Jesus Christ,
and we intend to die with it. And if they are going to try to force us to abandon it, we must resist them. Nothing can change that. Please, God, nothing. Message to Pope Francis. We pray for you every night, Your Holiness. But until you become Catholic again, until you begin to defend the bride of Christ in the modern world, we will resist you to your face with everything that we have. I'm Michael Matt for Rendon TV, and we'll see you next week.